Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. We are happy day after Thanksgiving. Happy Black Friday for people who are here in America. If you're in the banking world, you're probably excited. This is your biggest financial day of the year. So, may all those companies that keep lots of people employed, may they make lots of money today, so a lot of people stay employed. And they can get raises and better quality of life, because there's nothing wrong with that. See? Independent confirmation in the background. If you're like somebody like me anyway. So we are in Bible study. We are in the NIV. I know, that creates a lot of emotional reactions. We'll be in it next year too. But the good news is in 2026, we'll be starting a different one, the KJV, which seems to be the most popular one. I don't know if the version I have is, but I'll tell it. And I'm going to read a bunch of different versions, so it doesn't matter. You can tell me what your favorite versions are down below. I'll put them on the list. I will. I've even got a Catholic Bible over there, and I intend to do that one too, because it would be interesting to me to see what the differences might be. Now, eventually, these will turn into other sort of like, here, I made a PowerPoint presentation of the different versions of the wording, and let's discuss what that means. Because that is part of the intention of the channel, to really study, right? What does it mean? Because I come back to this, and quite frankly, I ask questions, I have situations the day before. The next morning I come and I sit down and I do the Bible study that I listen to and take notes. And then I come on here and I record these videos and I get my answers. It's not necessarily going to give answers to everybody else, but it works for me. So in this video, we're in Mark chapter 9. We're going to go from verse 1 to verse 32. And then in a separate video, we'll pick up at 33 through 50. So that's why it's about... if I tried to do it directly in half, we'd be in the middle of a parable. Or it's not really a parable, but, a heading. And I don't like that. I like to keep them grouped together. It's not real big in the middle of the story. So, chapter 9, verse 1. And he said to them, I tell you the truth. Some of you who are standing here will not taste death before they see the kingdom of God come with power. Okay, some of you will be alive. The transfiguration, verse 2. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain where they were all alone. There he was transfigured before them. His clothes became dazzling white, whiter than any one in the world could bleach them. The sunlight pulling through, right? And I don't... the word bleach there. And there appeared before him Elijah, Moses, and Moses, who were talking to Jesus. So again, we would cover that with the Matthew. This is like that moment in which, you see Anakin, Yoda, and like Obi-Wan, and then now they have Qui-Gon, right? Yeah, Qui-Gon in there. It's like that moment. Like the band's back together. The holy holies of faith are there. Okay? Peter said to Jesus, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. He did not know what to say. They were so frightened. Yeah, so I'm sure they would have been in very high levels of shock, right? But trying, like clearly Peter's trying to not be afraid, because this is after Jesus called them his rock, right? And he's trying to figure out even what that means, and he gets to see this is not pretend. This is for reals, right? I mean, he's having experiences that he has no other way to explain. That's why he came to the fact that he's the Messiah so quickly. Like, no, there's no human, no prophets before you could do these things. These things that you're doing, they're unique to you. This year, the Messiah. I mean, and it was just that simple for him. So he's trying to, because it's a certain celebration. It's called Sukkot. They build an outdoor structure to, in honor of, the trek their ancestors had to make when they had to live in the wilderness and everything. So they make it out of things from the wilderness. Okay. Then a cloud appeared. Like, mostly, if you want it for a Christian reference, it's a certain type of how they like to depict the manger, where it looks like it was sort of just thrown together, and it sort of had like, a thatch or leaf roofs or something like that. That's kind of what a Sukkot, but it would be open in the front. That's kind of what a Sukkot structure would sort of look like. If you were going to have it open in the front anyway. It would have a similar appearance to I'm reminded of this because I'm going to be putting up my nativity scene later, after this, really. I start decorating for Christmas. Because, celebration of Jesus. And I get to decorate my whole house in a celebration of Jesus. Yeah. So it means there's no Santa Clauses here. It doesn't mean there's no garland or no lights or no of the other festive things. But the first thing that goes up is the nativity scene. And someone yesterday, my friend Joey, he's like my son. He's so dear to my heart. He gifted me with like this little nativity book that is the story of Christmas. And it came with these little satchels of frankincense and myrrh and this little jar of like gold flakes in it. So I'm going to like stick it in the manger with the everything else. With the, with the baby Jesus and, because my nativity has all the figures, but it doesn't really have gifts in there that I can put in there. So now I have gifts I can put in there. Isn't that lovely? I got that on Thanksgiving, so that was my heart. And it was good, too. I needed that. Verse 7. Then a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and a voice came from the cloud. This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him. Suddenly, when they looked around, they no longer saw anyone with him except Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. Okay. They kept the matter to themselves, discussing what rising from the dead meant. And then they asked him, why do the teachers of the law say Elijah must come first? Jesus replied, to be sure, Elijah does come first and restores all things. Why then is it written that the Son of Man must suffer much and be rejected? But I tell you, Elijah has come, and they have done to him everything they wished, just as it was written about him. Because Elijah was John the Baptist, but that's in Matthew, but note how it's not here in Mark. Huh? The healing of a boy with an evil spirit. Verse 14. When they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and the teachers of the law arguing with them. Oh, that's not good. As soon as the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. What are you arguing with them about? He asked. A man in the crowd answered, Teacher, I brought my son, who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes at the teeth, and becomes rigid. So he has a seizure. Those are all symptoms of a seizure. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not. O unbelieving generation, Jesus replied, how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me. So they brought the boy to him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy on into a convulsion. He fell on the ground, rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, how long has he been like this? From childhood, he answered. It has often thrown him into the fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. If you can, said Jesus, everything is possible for him who believes." Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." When Jesus saw the crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the evil, or unclean, Greek for unclean, spirit. "You deaf and mute spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." The spirit shrieked, convulsed him violently, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said he is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him out privately, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" He replied, "This kind come out only with a prayer." B. Some manuscripts, prayer and fasting. They left that place and passed through Galilee. Jesus did not want anyone to know where they were, because he was teaching his disciples. He said to them, "The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after 3 days he will rise." But they did not understand what he meant and were afraid to ask him about it. But he does sometimes come back and be like, "Are you dumb?" So I can understand why one wouldn't want to be rebuked. You know, I've always been a sit in front of the class, the one the teacher leaves in charge of the room kind of student. So I can understand why they might be afraid to ask. But yeah, so if it's like a demon, so then authority, prayer, yes, always prayer, because it only is by his will that we can do anything. But with authority, the prayer, like as if you know God's going to say yes, because he would never want anybody to be tortured by a demon. Right? It's that kind of faith. And then there's the kind that comes when somebody's ailing from something, right? Where they're physically getting hurt. Then it's a prayer for mercy. Right? So he still addressed, seizures like it was a separate spirit. And I sort of look at diseases in much that same way, personally. Maybe that's where I get it from in the first place. Because I do light prayer candles for people when they ask. You know, I am a minister. This is church. So I have a spot in my house that, when we are lighting candles in hopes that people get sick or get through something or for, protection or whatever it is that they're looking for. It's always done with prayer in the Spirit of the Lord and Heavenly Father, please, whatever it is, because it's going to change. Prayer is always good, but those prayers are, we always want it to be within God's will, and so we have to word it that way. But those prayers are usually more like pleading, because you want this person to get better, as opposed to commanding, which is what you do with an evil spirit. You can't leave room for it to have the possibility of sticking around. So let's remember that there are different types of energies for different situations, and it's not a one-stop shop for how we're supposed to respond to each individual. Everybody's got their own thoughts and feelings, and all those things have to be respected, unless what you want is for that person or entity to simply leave and not return.